Hi, everyone. Welcome to Long Game, a Heated Rivalry podcast. My name is Silvan, and I'm joined with Declan, and we have a very special guest joining us today. So, this episode is going to be a little bit different in that we're going to be talking about the women of Heated Rivalry. So, we're going to be covering content from all 6 episodes. So, if you haven't caught up on all the episodes, just bear that in mind. So, speaking of our special guest, we are joined by Ren Browne, who is the author of The Crush, Adversity, and the soon to be published Providence. And she also has a podcast called Shelf Aware. So thank you so much for joining us on the podcast, Ren.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm always looking for an excuse to talk about this show more. So, clearly.
And so how I found you was purely on TikTok. And I just loved your posts and how deep and thoughtful they were. And the analyses just blew me away. I remember talking to Declan very early on. I'm like, how do we get Ren on the podcast? Is she going to say yes?
Yes. Yeah, I did. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I know I love smartly written characters, but I think this show is such a rare combination of all of these different things that I love. And I think I recorded that first video after I watched episode 4, and I was like possessed by this show, and I just started talking, and then I couldn't stop, and now I've been talking for weeks now, and I'm still not stopping. So, but yeah, no, it's consumed my existence basically at this point. So
I think everyone's the same at the minute. It's kind of consumed everything.
yeah,
It's never stopped. Like my TikTok feed has not changed from Hollander edits
no,
in weeks. It just keeps going, and they keep on getting more details.
and there's new stuff.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
think the more the actors are sort of like doing stuff and doing press, the worse it gets because they're just as charming as the characters. And now I can't get
totally
rid of it.
are. Yeah, I think too. Like now you have other countries getting it for the first time, so it's like I think it's actually even building a little bit more because you've got new countries. Not that people haven't been watching on the down low, but like you're getting new people exposed to it, and so yeah, it seems like it just keeps building.
To quote Ilya, this is a problem I don't want to go away.
Ever, ever, ever. Yeah.
But so rather than Ilya, what I wanted to talk to you was about the women in the show. I feel like the women are written so well and they have such a large presence on the show that I really wanted to do a deep dive on this, and specifically with you as well, because you have such a good take on all these different characters.
Thank you. Yeah, and the women are something I haven't talked about yet. So I think I was very excited to talk about them. I think I have so much to say that I haven't edited it into those little 3-minute videos yet. So yeah, happy to talk about it.
So what were your impressions of the female characters written into the show?
I mean, I really have loved the way the women have been written on the show. I think that they're all I love that they all have very distinct personalities. Like they're not just like a monolith. They're all like their own people. They're all their own, they all have their own quirks and their own things that they're dealing with. But I also love that they haven't really been written as none of them are written as like enemies or competition, really. I mean, I know that Ilya gets jealous of Rose, but like, they're not written as like foils to anything. And I think that I love that the way that they've all been written as really strong characters, not unflawed characters, but like strong characters, which I like to see that, especially for female characters. So
yeah, I think just to add to that, a lot of romance books and sort of that sort of content, TV shows centered around queer characters, they will typically try to use the women as obstacles to keep the main pair apart. And they chose not to really do it that way in this book. Now, obviously, there are elements of that in sort of Rose's relationship with Shane, but that's also like a situation of Shane's own making. So we can't even put that on Rose. And because she's also such a three-dimensional and likable character, you sort of just put the blame on Shane for that instance. But in general,
she kind of excuses herself out of
it. Like she's the one with the intelligence to go, actually, I'm going to back away from here. By the way, are you gay? And that you tend to work for. But yeah, in general, the way in which the women are depicted in the show, you get the sense that you know, Jacob Tierney did not want any of them to be demonized. She didn't want any of them to be
Yeah.
like shown in an overly negative light as just these tools of the plot, and actually gave them
Yeah.
personalities and roles to play within the story that aren't just I'm going to put you in the middle of these two and just have everyone fight about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. And I think the other thing I really like is that you can tell he was very conscious of like, at no point are the female characters giving them permission, but they're telling, because it's not their permission to give. That's not their role. But like, I think what I like is that in each case, the characters told, their male counterpart, like kind of like what they needed to hear to give themselves permission. And I like even that dynamic, I think was written in a really smart way, and I appreciated that they kept to that versus like feeling like, well, let me tell you how you should do this. It's like, no, it's like, let me give you the information and then you kind of do with it as you will. And I thought that was actually written really smart too.
I think what I really liked is that each of these female characters were written as such a great counterpart to the male characters.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they complemented them so well. Like, you couldn't
Yes.
pair Rose with Ilya, for example. He would eat her alive.
That's so true. Yeah. I mean, they're
That
really
sounded
kind
really
of
bad, but
No, I think you're right though. I mean, because she's a perfect pairing for Shane, and I think the thing is like they're almost written in a very similar way to like when you write romantic pairings, of like their strengths and weaknesses need to complement each other, and I think in that way you have these friendships written in a very similar way, and I think that's really smart. Even though they're not, I mean, Shane and Rose are for a little bit romantic, and Ilya and Svetlana have like a friends with benefits situation, but like the thoughtfulness of their friendships also really mean that they strengthen each other. I think was really good to see, because I think they do in each case they tell them what they need to hear in the way they need to hear it, versus I agree with you. I think Rose to Ilya would not it wouldn't go the same. Like Ilya needed somebody like Svetlana who's like, I know you and I know what you're doing and this is how like we're gonna have this conversation. And so yeah, no, I completely agree.
That's a really good point. That they're kind of the perfect women for them if they were to be in a
Yes.
romantic pairing. Like
Yeah.
Svetlana is
Yeah.
exactly the kind of woman that you could expect Ilya to want to be with forever, and Rose is the exact same for Shane. So it's actually a really clever choice then to have them
Mm-hmm.
sort of be companions rather than lovers in a sense.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I suppose it also goes to show that, just because you get along with someone or you imagine someone as being perfect for you, it doesn't mean that they're going to be the right fit because, you know,
Yeah.
for Shane and
Yeah.
Elliot, they're each other's perfect fit, so they are, even though they couldn't be more opposite,
They
and you would
are.
think that they wouldn't belong together. And yet, their romance is the one which is the most engaging out of the entire thing. So, yeah, it was an
They're
interesting choice
perfect for
to
each
pair them
other.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, Shane and Ellie are so perfect for each other because I think they really are. They have what the other one needs and they love each other exactly how each other are, which I think is like they don't try to change each other. But no, I think it's also just like a really good expression of like there's lots of ways that you have love in your life, right? Like it's not always just romantic love. Like sometimes it is like, and platonic relationships can be just as important sometimes as like romantic ones. And so I like that and like even the familial relationships are really explored. And so I do like that the show explores, it's not just about the romantic, like it's also about these friendships and what a huge thing that these friendships can be in your life, that like I mean they do move things forward in a way that would have been hard without them. So
Hmm.
I think it's real. I think
yeah,
all
you're
the
right.
characters are written really smart.
Yeah, and as an author, when you're watching this and you're watching these relationships unfold, not just between sort of the women and the men, but also just the men themselves as well. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what are you looking for? What's going through your mind as you're watching these females develop and continue on in the show?
I'm really looking forward to season 2. I don't want to get like too spoilery, but like I am really interested to see. I think Svetlana was changed so substantially from the book. Her
Yes.
role in the show is very different. Where I think she really, I mean, making her a childhood friend, I love that they did that
Yeah.
because I think does make her someone that Ilya is more likely to trust. And then they just also have a much deeper emotional connection. So then she can be the person to be like, hey, like, like you do deserve love. Your father is a piece of shit. I think her role has been changed in a way that I really, really love. And I think I'm really interested to see how Rose and Shane's relationship continue to develop. I really want like a family dinner with like with like Shane and Ilya and Rose and Svetlana and Hayden and, and Jackie. Like I just want the chaos that would ensue. But I mean, I am really interested to see how Svetlana and Ilya's relationship develops in season 2 because it is so different than what was in the books. And so I'm really, really interested to see how that continues to develop, and then even too how they maybe start to intersect with the other characters. So
And that is a really good point. Like Svetlana is so different in the show because in the book she's still like this force of nature. She sort of just blows into Ilya's life very
yeah,
occasionally, like a
yeah,
whirlwind, gives some really good
yes,
advice and then disappears again. She doesn't have that sort of
yeah,
lasting presence that she does within the show. Like you can see in
yeah,
like the cutaways and the montages that she's pretty present in Ilya's life. Whereas you get the idea in the
mm-hmm.
book that Svetlana only really shows up like once a year in Ilya's life and then disappears again. And they have a
Yeah,
it's almost like she is, for Ilya in the book, a neutral party that knows his secrets and he can confess things to. That's more the sort of relationship I get from the book. Whereas in this, she is like personally invested in him and really cares
yeah,
deeply and loves him.
she really is.
Whereas
Yeah,
in the book, you don't really get that vibe. So I think they've really developed her character into someone that is actually pretty three-dimensional and belongs a lot in Ilya's world. And now
yes, I
Jacob
agree.
Tierney has this new
Yeah,
character he can work with.
yeah. I think in the book, don't they meet like he buys a car from her or something? Like I think it's something. I'm trying to remember exactly. It's not. It's there. She's not a childhood friend. I
No.
think that they meet much more casually or something. And I love because she does have this role in his life that she's able to be there for him in Russia because like he doesn't have anybody else. And
Yeah.
I mean, she's such a huge person in his life. But I think even too, she also has such a good bar to measure his other relationships by because even Svetlana, who he's known since childhood, he's still not nearly as vulnerable with her as he is with Shane. And I think it even just heightens like your awareness of how completely down bad he is for Shane. The fact that like, I mean, he's nobody comes close to Shane for him. And it starts
Yeah.
really early. It starts really, really, really early for Ilya. So sweet baby.
Yeah, the thing I get from Svetlana is there's also this unrequitedness from
Yeah.
her part as well, especially when we look at episode 5 where she has that very
Yeah.
sweet tender moment with Ilya, and it's almost she knows to back away because she's not the person that he wants comfort from.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think and I love the way she did approach that, where she's like, I know you love me. And she says to him, I'm not going anywhere for whatever you need. I'm here. I know you love me. I love you. And for Ilya, who has had such an awful experience with his family and who has lost someone very close to him, he lost his mother so young. Like for her to not even say like, hey, it's okay, but also like, hey, I am still here for you.
Hmm.
That's never going to change. I mean, I think that does give Ilya some peace to be able to start kind of being like, okay, I need to start thinking about this in a different way because, she's right. Svetlana's actually right. And she also, I think in the show that she definitely knows that it's Shane, but I think
Yeah.
it's implied, but I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, but I think it's
And,
really
and
sweet that she's there for him in that way.
yeah, and for me, Svetlana is almost Ilya's secure base. And we think about
Yes.
attachment
Yeah.
styles, for example.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though they're not in the same place a lot of the times,
Hmm.
knowing that she's out there and she's literally at the end of a phone call, for me
Yeah.
feels like he has roots somewhere because they're
Somewhere.
not in
Yeah.
Russia.
Mm-hmm.
No, and he even says, like, when he's on in the monologue, he's like, that's not true. He's like, I don't have anyone. And he's, so that's not true. I have Svetlana. And even when they're in Russia after the Olympics, she tells him, I'll see you in Boston. Like, so, he does have this constant in her, which I think is, again, I love that change from the book because he does need somebody. But I think I think they're really sweet together. And I think she also, for her, I think she does love him, but I think she also kind of knows he's not her person either. But but she does love him in a way that, she would do anything for him. And I'm so happy that he has her because his family sucks. Like, his dad and his brother suck. So,
Yeah. But that's raises a good question though. How does the absence of Ilya's mother affect him? Not just throughout
oh
the
God.
story, but
Yeah.
as a person, how does it affect
Yeah.
his decisions throughout the book? Because I think he says she's 12 whenever she dies.
He's
And
12. Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
what does that absence create, especially in a child that suffers so much trauma and then like, can you imagine his father and his brother trying to comfort him at that time in his life?
They
Like,
probably didn't. They
no, they
didn't.
probably didn't.
Yeah.
No, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Considering how
Yeah.
cold the funeral was for the father, I can't imagine what the
Yeah.
mothers would have been like with the father as the only sort of parental figure to look after Ilya. Uh,
Mm-mm.
like, what do you think that might have cost?
Oh God. I think it's I think one, Ilya himself, when he's talking to Shane at the cottage, like when he's describing his mother, he's like, I don't want you to think she was weak. She was so funny and she was so beautiful. I mean, he's like describing himself and as he's talking about her. And I think Ilya is so much more like his mom, probably, than either his dad or his brother. And so I think losing her the way he did at 12, especially knowing that his dad and his brother I mean, emotionally and verbally abusive, would have been incredibly, incredibly hard. And I think and he hasn't dealt with that. There's no way he's been able to deal with that because I'm sure that his father and his brother, I mean, he even says, my father was so hard on her. I'm sure he was really hard on Ilya too. And I don't want you to think she was weak, that's coming from somewhere. So I can only imagine that how his dad was, and I think it made him really, really. I think it made him really, really hesitant to form deep attachments because it was so hard. And then I think after that, he probably learned that being vulnerable only got him ridiculed. I mean that one event in his life would have been, I think you see so many echoes of it in how he acts now. And I think a lot of times like people are like, well, he's being an asshole. And it's like he's scared. Like he's like not
It's a
he's
self-defense
scared. I mean,
mechanism.
he's self-protecting so much of the time. I think especially when you look at like the tuna melt debacle when they're on the couch and he's like putting those feelers out, the side eye that he's doing, like he's watching everything like that Shane is doing. And but I think that one event probably made such a huge impact on him. And he definitely has not dealt with it at all at this point.
Mm.
He hasn't been able to.
No, and I can imagine, losing a parent, especially by suicide at that
Yeah.
age. It almost creates it freezes time in a way. And it
Yeah.
creates this
Yeah.
snapshot of a person, I can
Hmm.
imagine for Ilya, of what his mom was like right there and then.
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
talks about her with so much affection and so much love. It's almost, yeah, to me it's almost like in a way she's idolized, because how can she
Yeah.
create any how can you sort of reminisce about flaws from a person when they've passed away? You don't tend to do that naturally. And
Yeah.
so for Ilya, there is this idolization of putting her on a pedestal in a way, because he was so young as well.
Yeah. Well, and she probably was his like one comfort and safety in the house. But I also think you see such tremendous emotional intelligence from Ilya by the way he's talking about her when he says like, I don't want you to think she was weak. She was funny and she was pretty. And like even with Alexei, like when he's talking to Shane, he says, well, Alexei is scared and that makes him terrible. And I mean, even with Alexei, he's excusing that behavior to an extent. And it just shows how much emotional intelligence that Ilya has to be able to understand that it's not simple a lot of the time, and that even Alexei is reacting from a place of fear. And he's so incredibly perceptive and so aware of like what's going on around him. And I think another thing, and I know I've talked about this in some of my videos, is I mean, that sense of hypervigilance often does come from growing up in a household where you really have to be very vigilant about what's going on around you. So Ilya's had such a hard life. And I think that's why Shane is so attractive to him, because Shane is so sweet and he's an open book and he's so non-threatening, and Ilya's like, amazing. This is so good, you know?
You're right.
Yeah.
Because Shane is almost a product of his mum in a way.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of his dad
Yeah.
in Shane, maybe from the TV
He's
show, maybe it's different in the books.
He's
But the
very
dad
his mom
is-
in the show. Yeah.
Right? Especially when we go to episode 6 and we have that, you know, that interaction outside of the house, and their body language is so mirrored, and the way they sort of like just regulate, it's very mirrored between them. And in a way, I
Yeah.
keep thinking how Shane is a product of his mum.
Well, and even in the fact that his mom says, I love you so much. And that's what he says to Ilya. He doesn't just say, I love you. He says, I love you so much. So it's like, there's some things that he learned from from his mom that are probably not great. Like the perfection, like he's
Perfectionism,
very
definitely.
pressured. Yeah. To feel and a lot of that pressure does come from Yuna. And I don't even think she means to do that. I think it's just, that's her mentality. And she's like, hey, focus up, like we got it. So I think Shane experiences a tremendous amount of pressure to be perfect, so that's like a negative. But on the other side, I think his parents absolutely taught him how to love and how to show affection, and like some really, really good stuff too. And he does have such a stable family dynamic that is it's a complete 180 from what Ilya has. And so I think there's been a lot of really good things that he's learned from his family too, for sure, that Ilya will get to have too, which is, I need that. That's what I need for him in season 2.
Season 2, I'm really looking forward to seeing how Ilya slots into this family dynamic, because
I am too.
This is something that he has been lacking for his entire life, almost his entire life, at least
Yeah.
since he's been 12 years
Yeah.
old. And I wonder how having a mother figure in his life again is going to impact him, because think of how they were spending their free time on their like seasons off. Yuna had Shane on a schedule. So that woman had him doing ad campaigns for every single business out there. Calvin
Yes.
Klein get
Yeah.
involved. She
Yeah.
had him
Yeah.
like busy, whereas Ilya was spending his time partying, and that was all he did. So
Yeah.
now that the dynamic has changed so much, and her influence is going to be so present in both their lives, like how is that going to play out?
I'm so excited.
I think he's going to thrive. I think he is going to thrive, because I think for Yuna, Shane's mum, I spent a lot of the series not really getting her, and then not really liking her, and then not liking her at all, and then coming all the way back around in that last episode. Because for me, yes, someone like Shane needed Yuna. Shane was never going to, you know, find the endorsements and do all of that sort of PR stuff. He was just going to play hockey. That's all he wanted to do.
That's all he wants to do. Yeah. I mean, I think Yuna I really do think Yuna was trying to be a good parent. I don't ever get the sense that Yuna was like, I want him to make all this money so that I can reap the financial benefits. It's just, it was more, this is an area that Shane struggles with. I'm going to take care of this for him. And I think you see that even at the draft when Shane's talking to the new coach, and Shane is like kind of disassociating, and Yuna steps in and is like, yeah, you know, I love the metros and so Yuna really is driving that bus for Shane. And I think you see, but I do think part of that is that is a shift a little bit of her character in the book, because in the book I know Shane has his mom, and he also has an agent.
He's not a manager in the book.
Yeah, so they kind of melded the two. But I think it does work in terms of just making it so that she is unintentionally putting so much pressure on him, and then to the point where she has created a situation where unintentionally she has made him afraid to tell her this thing that is monumental. And I think for Yuna, that's so incredibly hard, because she thinks she does know Shane so well. And then to find out that all this time he's kept something like that from her, I mean, you really would feel like you've really failed. And I love that they addressed it that way, that it was nothing to do with Shane. It was that she felt that
Yeah,
she'd really let him down.
the way she says it, it's like I'm so sorry you didn't feel like you could tell me.
Like, you could tell me.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's that she's sort of acknowledging that feeling that she's had as a
Yeah.
parent, and that she, like, through, no malicious intent, has accidentally created a strange dynamic with her
Yeah.
son, to the point where
Yeah.
he didn't feel comfortable opening up to her. And I suppose it just
Yeah.
shows how difficult it is to raise kids and to maintain their relationships and to try to be a positive influence in their lives as well. I don't
Yeah.
know if either of you guys have kids running around somewhere, but I can
I
only
have two.
imagine. Yeah, like I can
Yeah.
only imagine
Yeah.
the pressure of trying to do the right
Yeah.
thing by them all the time, and how it must feel then to sometimes fail and feel like you're failing them. I mean, it's incredibly complex and it's very difficult, and I can imagine as well her role as the manager also complicating it even further.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it
Yeah.
was a very interesting choice for Jacob Tierney to make her Shane's manager on top of just being his mother as well. Because in the book she's not
Yeah.
quite as present, and she's always a very light and positive influence in Shane's life. Whereas then you sort of
Hmm.
question a bit in the book, maybe, that why wouldn't Shane sort of tell his parents? Because he seems to have this amazing relationship with them. But then through
Yeah.
the context of the show, it makes a lot more sense why Shane maybe wouldn't want to do that. And I like that
Yeah.
change. I think it works better.
So, as a mum, then, Ren, how does that resonate with you watching a character like Yuna acknowledge some of the fallacies that she's had and some of the ways she's almost not created an environment for Shane to be able to be authentically himself?
Yeah, I mean, I feel for her in that. I mean, because I think the whole way they built up to it too, where you see them at the table, and Yuna gets up twice, or she's up walking around twice, and both times she touches Shane as she's walking by, and I think it's just this little nonverbal, like, reassurance, like, "Hey, I know I seem keyed up right now, but I'm not mad at you," like, And then I think after the boys tell her that they've been in love, that they're in love, that they're the only other person that they've loved is each other. And after that, I think the magnitude of what Shane has been keeping from her hits her. And that's when you
Mm.
see her get up and not touch Shane and go outside. And I really feel like at that point, she feels like she's almost not entitled to, because she feels like, oh my God, I have not only did my son feel like he had to hide that he was gay, but he also felt like he had to hide the fact that he's in love with this person I mean, this is huge. And so I did feel for her, but I also loved that she took responsibility to say, like, this was on me. Like, I created this environment. Because I think as a parent, that is the thing. If your child feels like they can't tell you something of that magnitude, then somewhere along the line you've messed up, even if your intentions weren't to do that. So I mean, it does start, I think even my kids are young. My kids are like 6 and 3. And I even now, like, try to be very intentional with my language, where my daughter was watching something the other day and she's like, am I gonna have a boyfriend? I was like, maybe, or a girlfriend or whatever. It's all fine, and it's like, I think you're just trying to build that in from a really young age, because those questions and those conversations start so much younger than you think they're going to. And I mean, I think you can try your best and you still mess up. So I
Mhm.
do feel for her. But I also admire the fact that she immediately took responsibility and was like, no, this is on me. And um we'll move forward. And I think it's such a sweet moment between her and Shane. And I appreciate again that none of it was Shane's fault. It was completely, no, I'm sorry. And I think that's as a parent, yeah, I think that's right. So
I really like that you talked about sort of her taking responsibility, and I
Yeah.
can't help but be really empathetic towards Yuna at this point, because if we think about Yuna, she's what, 50s, mid 50s? I don't know.
Yeah.
I know the actress is in her mid 50s. I don't know how old the character is supposed to be, but if we think about how she's been a product of the way she's grown up and the way,
Yeah. Yeah.
generationally what she would have learned, like if we
Yes.
assume that she was raised in the US or Canada, I don't know, you know,
Yeah.
being born in the 70s and living through the 80s, and, the whole AIDS epidemic in the 90s. And there is this fear instilled in you: if your child is gay, they're going to die of this disease. Like, there wasn't enough information out there at the time. And that fear is almost, and I see this with friends of mine, gay men who are older, that fear is instilled in them still. It's almost like
Hmm.
it's been locked in. And I can't imagine but help but think about a parent of that time thinking, shit, what if he is gay? Like, this is going to make his life so much harder.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think your instinct as a parent is to protect your kids from everything, right? Like you never want their life to be harder. But at the same time, you also want them to be able to be them, And I think that's why, again, the magnitude of she's like, okay, not only did he not tell me he was gay, but he's actually been in love with someone for years at this. And I mean, they don't even know how long. I know the boys say they weren't in love, but I think we all know they're in denial. But I mean, the magnitude of, and she does say when they talk about hiding it, she's like, no, that's sad. She's like, no, that's sad. And both Ilya and Shane are like, yeah, yeah. It's so, I mean, I think that her I love the conversation she has with Shane, but then also the conversation as a family after, because I think you can see it impressing on Yuna and David that their son has really been going through something that's very hard. And again, as a parent, you're like, and I think that's why Yuna goes into fix it mode, because she's like, how can I fix this for you? And it's not a simple thing for them. So
You could see the gears turning in her head. She was hearing all
yes,
this information.
immediately.
She had the sponsorship lined up in her head. The Pride
Yeah.
jerseys were about to
Yep.
be bought, strapped on
Yeah.
every logo
Yeah.
that they could find. But
Yeah, she's
that,
like ticking through the list.
yeah,
Yeah.
but that's her role in Shane's life. Her role is to very much
Yeah.
be his guiding force, to direct his energies in whatever way is going to benefit him the most. Obviously there's pressure in doing that, but yeah, people like that you can trust to take over at the drop of a hat and just know that you're in good hands. Like they're hard to come
Hmm.
by, and it's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
such a it's such a great role. It's such a great mom role as well. She's sort of extended out
It
her sort of
is.
motherly role to his sort of career as well and made it work within the context of him as an
Yeah.
adult. And I just think there's something really sweet
Yeah.
about that as well. I think it's very cute.
I think both David and Yoon are like, this is Shane's person, so he's our person now too. And I
Mm.
think David's dad does a good job too. Because I mean, at the end when the boys leave, he's like, watch your phones. So he says phones, which means they have both their phones now. And I think David, you see David like passing Ilya the pasta. And I mean, I think they both just adopt him. And I think it's so sweet because, God, I mean, he's been needing that so bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know I would love to have a Yuna fix my. But I'm like,
Don't
yes.
we all? Yeah.
You to take the wheel. Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, please. Yeah. Um,
Excuse me.
but then I also think you see Shane being like, I don't take 5 steps back. And he says, we just want a future. Because I think for Shane, none of it means anything without Ilya. I think that's his main thing is he just wants to be with Ilya. So he doesn't care about the sponsorships. And I think that'll be the thing for Yuna to kind of have to wrap her head around is like, okay, I can't help in this way, so I can help in other ways. And I think she will. I think she'll be great with Ilya in season 2.
So you mentioned earlier about how motherly and maternal Yuna is to both Shane and Ilya. But what I get as well is this really maternal, sort of protective vibe from Rose as well towards Shane,
Mm-hmm.
especially sort of in that breakup. There's a very protective element that I'm getting from her in the way that, she wants him to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah, she does. And I think the thing is, you see the difference between somebody like Rose, who has a very secure sense of self. And so none of the questions or really the conversation she's having with Shane, none of it is about protecting her own ego or her, like, not hurting her own feelings. She's purely just able to have that conversation with Shane, I think, in a way that Ilya couldn't, because Ilya was so busy trying to self protect that he couldn't just have the open conversation. And what I really loved about the way Rose handled it is it was very much about Shane. It was very protective, and she adjusted her communication style to Shane, because she started very general, like, oh, are there any other out gay hockey players? And she's like, okay, that's not working. And she even says, I'm not going about this the right way. And then she gets more direct, which is what Shane needs.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but then even then, when Shane does start to kind of get worked up, then she switches to questions where Shane could answer non-verbally. So she's very tuned in to where Shane is in that conversation. And she is purely having this conversation to help Shane, I think, to help him kind of walk through this. Like, well, have you ever been with another man?
Yeah.
Okay. Was it different? Okay. Was it better? Yeah. Okay. So, he needed somebody to kind of step him through that. And I think that's exactly what Rose did. And I think in a way that Ilya couldn't, because Rose didn't really have any stakes in the game. For her, it was just like, let me help this person that I have genuine affection for, versus Ilya's like, okay, the answers to these questions, my entire life's happiness is hanging in the balance. I think it's just a completely different set of stakes. And I think that's why the conversation goes so much better for Rose than it does for Ilya. So
Yeah. She expresses a lot of emotional intelligence and empathy towards Shane.
she does.
Like, she
Yeah.
is so clued in into his sort of way of being. I think she also sort of picks up that he might be a little neurodivergent as well. And she sort of says something like that there, like, I can't, like, someone at the end of their meeting along the lines of, you're actually really, really funny. And like nobody knows
Secretly
about it.
very
You're
funny.
secretly really funny,
Yeah.
which I thought was such
Yeah.
a funny
Yeah.
backhanded compliment. Um, but like her
Yeah.
general empathy towards him and the way in which she sort of very carefully chooses her words, it's just almost like she
Yes.
knows
Yeah.
she's dealing with like a rabbit that's about to bolt, and she needs to sort of like
Mm-hmm.
very smoothly transition into the conversation in a way which
Yeah.
leaves him an out a lot of the time, but she's creating an
Yeah.
environment where he's very comfortable, where he really doesn't have
Mm-hmm.
any sense of judgment or anything to fear from Rose, because she's making it very clear that she's not really hurt about any of this. She even says
She's not.
80%
Yeah.
of the men that I've dated before have ended up
Yes.
having
Yeah.
boyfriends or something like that. It was some
Yeah.
comment like that, and it was so funny. Um,
She's like, that's the funniest thing I've heard from any of my gay boyfriends, or something like that. And
which is just
but I
perfect.
think that,
It breaks the tension for Shane, so it does. It goes to
yes.
show him
Yeah.
that she's not taking this badly, and he has nothing to really fear from her. Because the thing is, Shane genuinely quite likes Rose. He really likes her
He
personality,
does.
likes
Yeah.
talking to her,
Yeah.
and you do get that expression in the acting, in the way in which the characters are together. But in the book as well, you also get Shane's internal thoughts of him literally saying, I really, really like her. I really like her as a person. And
Yes. He does. He
yeah,
does.
and that
Yeah.
does come across here, so it does. And I think she's the perfect person to kind of do this, because she's removed enough that he doesn't need to fear like a big repercussion of what's going to happen, and she has the emotional
Yes.
intelligence and the subtlety to be able to let Shane speak his truth in the way that he wants to, in a way that feels comfortable to
Yeah.
him. Whereas Ilya might
Yeah.
go in a little too hard, he might be a little too brash. His parents, he's sort of written off as not being able to talk to about it, and then anyone else outside of that sphere doesn't know what's going on and can't know about his sexuality out of fear of him losing everything. So she is sort of perfectly positioned to take on this role,
Yeah.
this really supporting role. And I think she executes it in such a great way that just makes you sort of fall in love with her yourself. So if Shane doesn't want her,
Yeah.
someone else will definitely want you afterwards.
Yeah. No, she's so good. And I think the other thing is, I think it helps. it reminds you too just how isolated Shane really is, because she's
Mm.
really his only person outside of hockey. And so I think that I think she really helps normalize things for him. And I think because she's like, yeah, like 80% of my boyfriends have left me for another guy. And you see Shane almost going to have this moment of being like, oh, it's not just me. And it's like, no, baby, it's not just, but he's so I mean, he's in this little hockey bubble. Like, he
Yeah.
doesn't really have contact with the outside world. And so I think it does kind of normalize things for him of like, no, it's not, of course it's not just you. It's not a problem that needs fixing because it's not a problem. And it's like, I think that she helps him kind of temperature check of, because he is feeling so anxious, and the fact that she's treating it like it's no big deal, he's like, okay, all right, maybe it's fine. And the fact too that she means it when she says, I want to stay friends, and they do stay friends. And so he also gets that reconfirmation after they leave that he's shared this piece of information with somebody, and it's not, to your exact point, it's not world ending. She still really, really, really likes him as a person, and she does want to be friends with him. And I think it's such a good moment for Shane, because, and then next time you see him at the All-Star game, he's like Mr. Confident. And I love that for him. It's so good. So he needed that conversation for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah,
And I
100%.
wonder if that almost serves as a blueprint for him to realize she didn't leave, nothing bad happened.
Yes.
So that
Yeah.
when he does, unite with Ilya at the cottage, hopefully the same will happen. He's not going to leave. Nothing bad will happen.
Yeah. I mean, Shane really does move the conversations a lot. I mean, he really does initiate a lot of the emotional intimacy. I think, especially if you look at the All-Star game hotel room, I mean, he really comes in hot and is like, I'm going to sit down. You're going to sit your finance down. We're going to have a
Oh no, this is
conversation, and
serious.
this, yeah, we're going to do this. Cause I think it's Shane's like, okay, sometimes just having the conversation actually does make you feel better. So let's do this, because I think Ilya is so dependent on Shane actually allowing him to push him away, or on Shane pulling back. And the second Shane stops letting him, Ilya's done. It's because he can't resist either. So but it did take Shane coming in and being like, you know what?
So thank
We're
God for
going to have a
Rose.
talk.
Exactly.
I know.
And
Yes. I know. Love Rose. Yeah.
thank God for Rose, because she does give him that push. In the same way I think about Elena, and there's a running joke in the whole podcast that I say Elena. So, but
Yeah.
in the same way, Elena pushes Kip as well.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love how she does it too, though, in a way that she's not like, and she says, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just telling you, and she is protecting her friend, but she's protecting Scott too. And because she says, you also deserve sunshine.
Mm.
And I think Scott, who has literally put everyone else ahead of his own happiness, and he needed to hear that. I think, again, you see the women in the show kind of telling their male counterparts like what they need to hear to start allowing themselves to be happy. Like, so I know Elena's she's a house on fire. I like her.
She's a
She's a
realist.
badass.
So
Yeah,
Like,
I love her.
I think that's why she works though, is she is that friend that you go to for the proper advice. Not the ones that are going to tell you how amazing you are all the time and how great you are and,
Yeah.
pop off queen. Like, she is going to really give it to you exactly how
She's
it
gonna
is.
give it to you straight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And she
Yeah.
can see that she isn't quite getting through to Kip. And so she's like, well, I'm taking matters into my own hands here. And she goes directly to Scott
Yeah.
because Kip is
Yeah.
too in love with Scott to act on,
Yeah.
these negative emotions that he's feeling. And she then takes that step to be like, I'm going to speak for my friend a little bit here because he is too in love with you to tell you this, but I'm going to be real with you. This is not working, and he is miserable as a result of what's going on here. I know you both love each other, but ultimately, what you're doing is just screwing everything up for both. And that conversation could have turned her into a very disliked character, but the
A
way in
villain.
which
Yeah. Yep.
she has empathy for Scott as well, and you can
Yeah.
tell
Yeah.
by the conversation that she fully understands what this is costing him as well. And because she is considering both sides, you can't really say that what she's doing is wrong in any way. So in that sense, you can't really be mad at her. In fact, you kind of respect her for having having the balls essentially to do what the boys can't do.
Yeah. She, well, I mean, I think you realize Scott doesn't have anybody in his life. I mean, no one knows, and he doesn't have anybody. Doesn't have family. Like, I mean, his whole life is his team, and like putting his team ahead of his own needs. And so, I mean, he doesn't really have anybody to be. Whereas, Kip has a really good support network. He has his dad, he has Elena, he has their other friends, and I think that Scott doesn't really have anybody. And so, I think Scott did need to hear someone say, "Hey, you also deserve sunshine. You also deserve to be in the light." And I think you guys, I think I was listening to one of you guys' clips. We were talking about how like you can't be happy when you're hiding. And I think that Elena knows that. And so she's trying to help not just Kip, but Scott. And I think that's why you do kind of are like, okay, yeah, that probably needed to be said. And she does come from a place of she's trying to help both of them, I think, just be happy. And, I mean, and Scott takes it to heart because he realizes that, yeah, he does need to be in the sunshine. So.
Yeah, and if you think about even the actress who plays Elena Nadine Barber, I probably butchered her name, I'm sorry. But with the little screen time that she does have, she steals the scenes that
She's
she's in.
Oh
awesome.
yeah.
I love her.
Oh,
She's so
yeah.
good.
Like,
Yeah,
you
I
can't
know.
take your eyes off her.
No, she's got so much presence and so much just like, I mean, she's a badass. Like, to be like, hey, I I love when she's like, Christopher, if I walk away, are you going to start talking? I mean, she is a very like, she's very outspoken, but you can tell it definitely comes from a place of love and that she does know him so well. And yeah, I love her. And then is it Maria in the show? The
Her
girl.
little one-liners throughout this.
Girl.
So good.
Yes, I love her too. She's so funny. I know. She was all of
And
us
this is
watching that scene.
right.
Yeah.
And I love
Yeah.
how funny the show is because yes, it's sort
Yes.
of built as a drama and stuff, but the show is hugely funny, especially when we have
Yes.
moments like
Yeah.
that lighten the tension
You
from
need it. You
Maria.
need it to break the tension. I mean, you
Mhm.
need like those moments of levity and those moments. I think that I mean, I really do think she spoke for all of us when she was like, "Girl," like I mean, because Scott Hunter coming in with that Under Armour that is like
Steve-Roo.
glued to his skin. Yeah, I'm like, good Lord.
And speaking of pushing Kip as Elena most usually does, the person that we don't hear about is Kip's mother. And so
Yeah.
I don't know how that's represented outside of the TV show.
I don't, and I have not read, I'm going to be honest, I have not read Kit Scott's book. I'm saving them for after I hit my deadline. I'm going to read the rest of them. But I've read Heated Rivalry and I've read The Long Games. I don't know if is Kip's mom mentioned in the book. Declan, have you read it?
I don't actually remember if she is. In fact, I don't really think Kip's parents are overly
Or at all?
present in the book. I think he tends to avoid them because of the pressure of having to submit his college application. By the way, Kip's character
Hmm.
in the book is like his problems turned up to 10 and they go out throughout the entire book, and it makes him difficult to watch or difficult to read at times. But the show's done him a little differently. But I think they put more emphasis on his relationship with his father anyway, which is actually very loving and very
Yeah. Yeah.
kind and really really nice. I think you
Yeah.
almost don't so much feel the loss of the sort of mother's presence because of the love that his father sort of has for him, and he's very open with his
Yeah.
affection and like Is there like a time whenever he says like love you, say it back, I'm waiting for you to say it back, love you.
Say
Like
it back. Yeah.
that's say it back.
Yeah.
It's a really sweet moment, and I think it's a very positive depiction of masculinity as well. I really do like
Yes.
the sort of relationship
Yeah.
that Kip has with his father. Um, but I would be very curious about his mother, about maybe what happened there. Maybe they're widowed. Who knows? But I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
Unless someone watching or listening has any idea, tell us please. But I can't remember at all about Kip's mom.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Because I'm gonna let myself read it after I've hit my deadline. But his dad is so sweet, and I just love his dad, and I love that even when Kip is kind of running around stressed, his dad is the one that's like, "You're gonna do great, buddy." Like, I mean, he's so sweet and so kind, and I agree. I think that it is such a lovely representation of masculinity, and I think that's actually something throughout the show that like you get just some really different representations of masculinity than you often get in mainstream media, and I think that is one of the things that's made the show so attractive. But Kip's dad is so sweet, and I think that kind of what we talked about with Yuna, Shane picking up so many of Yuna's characteristics and also like her way of showing love. I think that seeing how open Kip's dad is with showing love and being really very loud in a good way with his love, and then so it would be even harder for Kip to not to have to hide because he's not been raised to hide. And so I think it is really you get two very different representations of parenting there. But I mean, Kip's dad is so sweet and he's so openly affectionate. So I think that is part of the reason why Kip struggles so much. He's not used to it. He's not used to that.
Yeah.
He's so sweet.
Yeah. And now, one of the things that, and maybe it's because I've grown up watching very female centric shows, and this is not, this is very much focused on the boys and on the men, I should say, rather. And so, the one thing that I really missed were, the female friendships, because these female characters don't interact with each other. They only interact with their male sort of scene partners or counterparts. And so, what was your take on the fact that we don't get any female friendships depicted in this show?
I mean, I think for this narrative, I think it makes sense because I think there's so little time. I mean, this show is moving. I mean, the pacing is quick, and I think that I mean, it's moving. I mean, we're jumping years. I mean, and they only had 6 episodes, and I think that's why even with Scott and Kip's story, we're missing a pretty big chunk of, we don't really get to find out how they go from Scott outside Kip's birthday party to now Kip and his dad and Elena are all at Scott's game. So, I think we kind of missed that chapter. So I think to a certain element, there's just not a lot of time to get into some of these other relationships, but I think it's also a fact of all of these characters are really isolated in their own way, and they just don't have a lot of people around them to have like often these kind of friend group dynamics where you have like a lot of, I mean, Kip I think is really the only one that has like a pretty robust friend group, but I mean, Ilya and Shane are both very, very isolated in the hockey world, and Ilya has Svetlana and that's it, and Shane has Rose and that's it, and they really don't have anyone else outside of their very tiny bubble. That being said, I would love in season 2 to see Rose and Svetlana just lighten some stuff up. But I mean, I think that I think there's just not a lot of, I just don't think there's not a lot of room for a lot of those relationships to develop. And I think even within Ilya and Shane, like they just don't have big support networks at all. I mean, Shane has a much better one than Ilya does, but I mean, they don't have a lot of people around them at all. They're so isolated. Scott too, extremely isolated.
Yeah, because you're absolutely right, and in a way, these women almost serve as this narrative function in a very male-dominated world.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think that's very true to life, though. I think men have less close, sort of relationships in terms of like emotional quality and things like that, especially outside of the queer community as well. Like, I find that women and girls seem to have much more meaningful, larger friend groups than I would find with men for the most part. And I think that sort of reflects a sort of hockey world as well. Like, it's still very, very masculine and not always in the best sort of ways. And so you have this challenge of people having very limited options for emotional support. And I think it's not a
Yeah.
mistake that the guys are missing out on so many of these opportunities to be able to communicate with their friends and having such small support groups. And then all of a sudden, the biggest supporters that come into the story are all the women because they know what the business is. They know exactly how to lift someone up, how to
Yeah.
support them, and how to help them through a bad time. Whereas the guys are struggling for those relationships, and that does actually reflect real life, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
I
in a
would agree
way
with
it sort
that.
of mirrors real life gendered norms and expectations because you see
Yeah.
these women, absorb a lot of the anxiety and the vulnerability and the anger from these male characters. And how true is that in real life?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a gender pressure, a societal pressure often for women to be more emotionally mature, right? I think it's for women a lot of times to have that emotional intelligence because I think um you still see those labels where, a guy can be speaking very passionately about something and he's like, oh well, he's just passionate, versus a woman is like, wow, she's like, whew, she's crazy, I mean, I think that you still see a lot of these gender norms. And I think too, I so appreciate how they wrote these female characters with such care, because I think oftentimes too you find that the female characters are often judged harsher sometimes than male characters, because I think a lot of things kind of get written off as like, like, well, boys will be boys, and it's so I think that is a reflection of society. And I think again you see Ilya. I mean, you think of Ilya seeing those pictures of Shane and Rose, and he is like going through it. I mean, he's having a terrible time, and there is nobody around
Yeah.
him that he's talking to about any of those things. And I mean, his teammates certainly not. You even see his teammates kind of ribbing him about that they think he's been sleeping around, and he's, just been staring at paparazzi photos of Shane. I mean, there is, I think, definitely that element of they're in such a bubble of these kind of macho things around them, and then the women kind of come in and they are really their touch points with the outside world too, because neither of them are experiencing the outside world outside of, not really outside of those relationships. They're so insulated in hockey, and in that one kind of way of being, and in the hyper competitiveness and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sylvan,
the fact that
I
they
don't know what
go
your
ahead.
experience was. Sorry. I don't know what your experience was, Sylvan. Like, did you find it more comfortable as a gay man opening up to the girls than you did the boys? Like, did you find an easier time befriending the girls over the boys?
I really like that you asked that question because 100% yes. Um, I had a bigger group of female friends than I did male friends, and I went to an all boys school. I mean, I was surrounded by guys all the time,
Mm-hmm.
but it was the female friendships where I found the solace. It was my female friends that I came out to first because that was my safe
Yeah,
space.
yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
think we sort of know that the girls will offer you a lot more empathy and understanding than the boys will. And so it feels like a safer space to be in, because you know that you'll find that emotional support, which is in itself pretty loaded. What does that say about how we view, you know, the role of women in our sort of lives and in our relationships? Like, are they just there to carry the emotional weight, or is it something that we need to properly address as men? Um, because I know a lot of men in my life who are very emotionally intelligent, very switched on, very easy to talk to, and a lot of them now are my closest friends. But there's a lot of them who are the complete opposite, who are completely lacking in self awareness and are so emotionally repressed in the way that they behave that it's no surprise you feel the need to turn to somebody that you think would offer you more understanding. So yeah, there's a lot in that, and I don't think it's a coincidence that Ilya and Shane find solace and empathy in the women in their lives so much so than the men that they're surrounded with.
And so,
Yeah.
Ren, then, as an author, when you're writing female characters in your books, like, how are you constructing them in that way? Is there a difference in how you're constructing them versus the male characters?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, I think that I do have I think that as I go into write characters, I often understand that the female characters are going to get judged differently than the male characters. And I think you often see um, that the trying to think how to phrase this, the ceiling for bad behavior in a male character is so much astronomically higher than a
Yeah.
female character, which can be like, well, she's a little whiny. And it's like, okay, well, he's like killing people. So like is that on par? Or I mean, so I think there definitely is I feel like I've seen that quite often where like the male characters often get a lot more leeway, to act badly than the female characters do. Um, but I think that is one of the things that you kind of go in and write and think about, really thinking about all of these female characters and trying to write them in a way that they do feel very strong and authentic, and that they're not going to get beat up for being too something something something, but you also want them to be themselves. And I think that Connor Story gave an interview where I think he was asked, like, why do so many women love Heated Rivalry? And I think one of the things he said is that he thinks that women understand very well what it feels like to be put in a box and be told, like, you can be this one thing and you have to be this one thing. And so I think women do understand that a lot. And I think women do tend to have a lot of empathy for that feeling. And then two, I think that this representation of masculinity that doesn't feel as scary as often what women are exposed to is also really nice. I mean, I think I went to do you guys know who Orville Peck is?
Mhm.
Does that name ring a bell? Okay, I absolutely love him. I adore him. He's a country singer. I love him so much, and um, he's gay, and he had a concert in Chicago in what is largely considered to be kind of like a gay community within Chicagoland area. And I went to that concert, and I have never felt so safe at a concert or out in public than I did at that concert. It was amazing. It was amazing. I was like, this is so great. Like, there were tons of men there and they were all just amazing and I did not have to worry about, being there. And I think that is something that is really attractive to women watching this show, is like seeing these like non-toxic, much safer representations of masculinity than what we get exposed to in our daily life. So I think that's a huge part of the appeal for sure. So
Yeah, I love that you say that because as I can only speak from the perspective as a gay man. I don't know about other sort of groups, but as a gay man, there is an idolization of women that happens in pop culture. And so you see like a lot of these groups sort of really build up women, and there is this level of respect, and not to say that they don't tear them down, unfortunately, on social media, but then everyone does. But there is this sort of propping up of these women or these female characters that gay men will identify with so very much. And there's a
hmm
protectiveness that comes with that as well.
Hmm.
hmm yeah,
I don't know what your
yeah.
perspective on that is, Declan.
Yeah, I would say that's quite true. Um, you know, there's like different sayings like Queen of the Gays, Like you adopt her as your mother. Lady Gaga is like we're all her monsters, and
Yeah.
so many different like pop culture icons who are all women are all sort of propped up and idolized by gay men. Some of them very rightly so. But it's like that. It's almost like a term of endearment of like respect and admiration, and so much of I think gay culture is wrapped up in the culture of women as well. And so, yeah, I just find it such an interesting little thing to be done. I think it's because of the comfort and the relatability that gay men find with women, with the more feminine at times. And yeah, it just feels like a safe space. It feels like a space to have fun and to, yeah, just be who you're meant to be.
Yeah. I think women are taught we're given so much more space, I think, to be very openly affectionate. I think that's one of the things that people love so much about Connor and Hudson is they're so huggy and they're so sweet together and they're so openly physically affectionate with each other. And again, I think going back to that this portrayal of masculinity that doesn't feel like a lot of what we see often in the mainstream. But I think, we are very huggy a lot of the times with our personal relationships and our friends, and we're very affectionate, and, we're given so much more space, I think, often to do that than men are. And that's one of the things that, it's the toxic masculinity thing goes both ways. It hurts both sides where, you have men that feel like they don't feel like they can express themselves. They can't be affectionate with their friends or their, the people that they love. And then, women are getting a different experience of that. So, I mean, I think that's the thing is, it really harms everybody. And I think that's why shows like this are so important to show, there's not just one version of masculinity. There's also not just one version of femininity. I think I think this more nuanced storytelling is so important for that reason.
Yeah. Did you also all see the NHL player came out?
Yes. Yeah. I saw that. Yeah. He said that he watched Heated Rivalry and thought, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he apparently had a bit of a panic, but then when he calmed down, it gave him confidence to come out and do what was shown on screen, which I think is just such a great indication that the show is doing a lot of good.
Yeah. Well, and why representation matters and why like it's so important to see, to see yourself and see people that are going through the same things you are and see that it's okay. I think just having that connection point is why it's so important to have all of these different types of stories being told, because we're seeing in real time. I mean, the show's been out what, like 6 weeks, like a month and you're seeing just such a huge impact already. And I think that's amazing that it's able to show people that. I hope too that people that are in hiding too are seeing just how much people are like rallying around the show. Like I hope it does create a sense of safety, hopefully, for some people. And it's a really nice thing to come up this. It's why it makes it so much bigger than just a TV show.
Yeah,
So
100%.
Yeah, that's so beautifully said as well. Thank you. You can tell you're an author. Gosh, you're so good with words.
You should write.
Thank you.
Buy her book, everyone. But in a way, I feel like this whole conversation is something that I've been looking forward to having. And I know we've sort of been like looking forward to having this conversation with you specifically, Ren. And I think it so very much encapsulates how the women in the show really prop up the men. They give them the ability to have that safe space to be able to either come out or receive that reinforcement and really feel supported in a way that in the way that women in my life have done my entire life.
Yeah. And I hope people too like watch it and think like, okay, this is a good example of how to be a safe space for someone, so that when people do come, that you can hopefully support them in the way that they need. So it's such a good it's such a good model for so many different types of relationships, for friendships, but then also parental relationships. I hope that a lot of, I mean, I know, again, like as a parent, me watching that scene with Yuna, and I was like, okay, like how do I make sure that I do not have this conversation with my son or daughter, years and years from now? And I hope a lot of other people are watching it too and thinking like, okay, like how do I make it better than what I'm seeing? So yeah.
I feel like we can have 3 hours worth of this conversation. Maybe we should
We
maybe
definitely
we should
could.
transfer it over to your podcast, because I know you and Lizzie can talk.
Oh my God. I know. We can do that. We can go back and forth. We can have, I'd love to have you guys on too. And I mean, I think you could talk about this show for years and still find stuff. And that's what's it was shot over the course of like a month. That's
crazy.
Unreal to me. I mean, how much they layered in. I mean, Jacob Tierney had to be cooking on this for a while. I mean, that is unbelievable. So,
and this is why we need to be patient for season 2. We cannot rush
yes,
him.
let that man cook.
Let him do, right?
Let that man cook. Yes, I'm like, I'll wait. I will wait. I mean, I will happily wait. I would much rather, and that is such a thing right now. Is I think there's so much pressure to like kick things out really fast, but then it comes out and it's not what people want, and then they get disappointed. It's like, you gotta let the creative process takes a while. You gotta, and this is what happens when you let people have the space to pursue passion projects and to think things through. You get art. I mean, it's a beautifully done show. It's beautifully done.
And actually, that's something that I've learned from you in a way, from watching how you present yourself on your TikTok and your Instagram, and even the way you've developed your podcast. You haven't rushed it. Like we were having a conversation off camera, and you spend your whole first episode of your podcast talking about the first 16 minutes of episode 1.
Yes.
And I thought, how amazing is that you've taken the space, you've taken it at your own time, but you're developing it on your schedule. And a bit of self-disclosure, I was so worried about publishing this podcast. And Declan and I had conversations like, who's going to listen? Like, how people are going to find us? Like, how quickly do we need to churn out these episodes? And something I've learned from you is to just take a step back, slow it down, and it will come. So thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's one of those things where I think there's a quote from, I think it's Jane Austen. I can't remember who it's by, but I think the quote is basically that a well-written book will always feel too short. And it's like, I mean, so I think the thing is like, if it's really good content, people are always going to want more of it. And, but it's not going to be as good if you rush it. And that's a good thing for me. I have to tell myself that all the time. I always am like, I wish I could do things faster. I wish I had more time. And sometimes it's better I'm learning to, I'm learning to like, just kind of slow it down. And there's so many things I think with this show that are such important conversations. I think even around like mental health and, just so many things woven into this show that I just want to give them all their due diligence. But there's even stuff that I'm not talking about because I'm not a subject matter expert on it. Like I'm talking for 4.5 hours about this episode 1 and I'm still leaving stuff out, which is insane. That's insane. That's crazy.
Now, Ren, where can people find you on social media? Where can they find your podcast?
Yeah,
and
so I'm
books?
Yeah, I know. My other life. So I am on Instagram and TikTok. You can find me at Ren Browne Writes. That's Brown with an E. Or you can follow me on the Shelf Aware or actually just Shelf Aware podcast on TikTok and Instagram. I'm not on Threads because Threads makes me anxious, but I am on Instagram and TikTok, and I do talk about my books on there too. So you can find my books wherever you shop for books. You can get them through your local indie. You can get them on Amazon. You can get them through Barnes and Noble, wherever you shop. So
thank you so much for being on here with us and for answering the DM when I asked you to come on to the podcast. Like, I'm so thankful that you just said yes.
No, thank you for having me. I think it's, I love talking about this show and I appreciate the perspective that both of you guys bring. And, I've loved listening to your clips. So it was nice to chat, and we'll have to trade. You guys will have to come hang out with me and Lizzie now. And we'll get 4 people of chaos on one call, plus Lizzie's cats. So
I can bring my cat as well.
Oh, good. Yes, I know. I won't bring my dog. That's too much. But yeah, we'll get the cats on.
We'll make a play date out of it.
Yeah,
I'll just bring my other
exactly.
personalities. It'll even out.
Oh my god, I can bring that too. Yeah, we can just all bring. There's so many people on the call. Yeah. But yeah, thank you again. I had fun.
Thanks, Ren.